In this video, I want to talk about a problem we have all faced. You add an image or a video to your layout and suddenly it looks stretched, squished, or completely broken the moment you resize the screen. Now you try fixing it with width, height, maybe even object fit, but it never quite works perfectly, right? What if I told you there's actually one single CSS property that can fix almost all of these layout nightmares? That property is called aspect ratio. And stay with me till the end because I will show you a trick with aspect ratio that even advanced developers don't know about. So what exactly is aspect ratio? It's just the relation between width and height of an element. For example, aspect ratio 16:9 means for every 16 units wide, the element will always stay 9 units tall. That's the same shape you see in YouTube videos. Now let me show you the problem we usually face. Here's an image without aspect ratio. When I resize the screen, the box changes shape but the image tries to fill it, so it gets squished or stretched. See how the picture doesn't look right? The box is controlling the shape, not the image. Now watch what happens when I add just one line. Now no matter how I resize, the image always stays in perfect proportion. That's the power of aspect ratio. Now here's the thing, before aspect ratio was added in CSS, developers still had to keep elements proportional, but the ways we used were honestly messy. The most popular hack was the padding trick. If you wanted a 16:9 video, you had to write something like this. It worked, but if you are a beginner, this makes zero sense. Why padding? Why 56.25%? It's not readable at all. Another common solution was manually cropping images. You would force every image into a square or rectangle just to line them up. The problem? You lose parts of your image and spend extra time editing instead of letting CSS do the job. And when it came to layouts with equal height cards like product grids, you had to fight with flexbox or grid tricks. You would write lines of code just to make sure every card matched in size. So yeah, all of this worked, but the code was messy, confusing, and really hard to maintain. That's why aspect ratio feels like magic. It solves all of these old struggles in just one line. Alright, let's actually see how aspect ratio works in practice. I've got a simple card here. This tells the browser, keep the width and height equal. So no matter how I resize the screen, the card will always stay a perfect square. Now let's try a different ratio. If I change it to aspect ratio 16:9, the card becomes a rectangle, the same shape as a video player or YouTube thumbnail. And if I go with aspect ratio 4:3, it looks more like an old TV screen. Here's the best part. I never had to set a height. The width automatically decides the height based on the ratio. That's why this property is so powerful. One line of CSS gives you layouts that always stay proportional. Let's start with images. Without aspect ratio, images can look squished or stretched depending on screen size. But once we set an aspect ratio, they always stay consistent. Earlier, we had to use padding hacks for responsive YouTube or Vimeo videos. Now it's just one line of CSS. Cards used to be messy because longer text made some taller than others. Now aspect ratio makes them consistent. Profile pictures are super easy now. Just set aspect ratio 1:1 and border radius 50%, always perfect circles. Masonry layouts used to break when images had random heights. Aspect ratio fixes alignment instantly. And that wraps the real-life use cases section. Each demo shows how aspect ratio makes layouts clean, consistent, and way easier than the old hacks. Now here's a little pro trick that makes aspect ratio even more powerful. Instead of hard coding one ratio, you can make it fluid using CSS variables. For example, check out this code. Here, I set up a responsive box with aspect ratio. That means if I don't provide a value, it defaults to 16:9. But with just one line of CSS, I can switch it to a portrait mode 9:16 or back to landscape 16:9.